So with everyone, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We do have quorum, and I know that your stomachs are going to start grumbling in about 5 minutes, so I don't want to keep anyone too long. I have a motion from Councillor Summers, seconded by Councillor B. Dunbar, to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And seeing none, we have no previous minutes, so I'm going to move down to the administrative reports and turn it over to our treasurer for our preliminary budget. Turning it over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just let me get the presentation up here. All right, is everybody seeing that?
Yep.
Okay, so welcome to our first budget committee meeting for the 2021 budget. Is this not going down? Oh, there we go. This is our proposed budget schedule. This was actually passed by council on Monday night. So where we are today is I'm going to be presenting to you an overview of our budget challenges for 2021. That deadline for our budget policy was October 31st, so we're starting off well ahead of schedule, so hopefully we can stay that way. And then as per Monday night's meeting, the next meeting will be October 27th, where the committee will be able to provide direction to staff. Our public meeting for the 2021 budget and 2021 user fees is proposed for November the 19th, and hopefully we will have a draft budget to the committee by December 3rd. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. But before we get into 2021, I know there's been a lot of questions about where we are for 2020 and with respect to COVID-19. The town's response, we reduced our consumption rates for water and wastewater. We deferred our due dates for water and wastewater billing and the second installment of the interim tax levy, and we closed most of our facilities to the public. This is just a very brief overview of our results so far. As per the budget policy, there will be a full report to council on where we are at the end of the third quarter, and hopefully that will be at the next council meeting. But just some of the specific areas that were of concern. Because we did reduce our water and wastewater rates, there was concern about where we would be as far as revenues. And at the end of the second quarter, our water rates were at 49% of budget, and our wastewater rates were at 46% of budget. So the reduction has not had a huge impact on our budget on our water and wastewater rates. The arena revenues obviously were significantly impacted by the closure of the facility. They're currently at 56% of their budgeted revenues, but it should also be noted they're only also at 57% of their budgeted expenses, so that they are on target to stay within their overall budget for 2020. The marina also impacted significantly. Their revenues were sitting at 42%. Again, there's been some cost containment there. They're at 62% of their budgeted expenses. And there's still some things to come in. So a lot of the students that were working at the marina are being covered by grants. And that grant revenue has not yet been recognized. We've not yet received it. So there is some still additional revenues to be recorded for the marina. And the museum was the other one that was severely impacted. They are at 62% of their budgeted revenue and 59% of their budgeted expenses. So although we've seen significant impacts on our revenues, staff have been working very hard to keep our costs in line with the new reality of where we are for 2020.
Just a question, Sue.
Yep.
Back to that. So when we're looking at those amounts, like the 52% or whatever it was there, 56%, are you looking at, like, I would expect that because we're like halfway into the year, right? Are we? Oh, I guess we're more than half. We're three-quarters. Okay.
Yeah. And we lost a lot of revenue in the spring with playoffs. We had a number of big rentals booked for the arena and the community center that had to be canceled. So
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking it was that we were at the halfway mark, but we're actually at
We're at
three-quarters.
the 3/4 way mark.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. Okay, thanks.
Well, Sue, I have a question.
Mhm.
Back to the 56% part. So according to this your chart we have in front of us, the percentage of budget revenue, arena, 56%. This is where we're at of what we would have been of 100% in the second quarter. Like, okay, 56% of what? What number are you? Like, if you said we're
Of
only
our-
at 50.
Yeah, of our annual budgeted revenues. So we're at the end of third quarter, we should be closer to 75%.
Right. Okay. So if we're in the second quarter, which to me would be halfway, the arena budget revenue at 56%, that is up over the 50% by
No,
6%.
We should be at 70, we're at 70, we should be at 75%.
Okay.
So it's only the water.
Water and wastewater I did at the end of second quarter because we don't have the third quarter billing yet. We've just done the third quarter billing for water and wastewater. So
Okay. That's
for
better.
everybody else is year to date. Sorry, I should have made that a little more clear.
Thank you.
Again, there'll be more details coming in the report to council on where we are at the end of third quarter overall. We are getting some COVID-related funding. We have 2 funding streams for transit, for our handy transit vehicle. We have some dedicated enhanced cleaning funds and some safe restart funds for municipal transit pressures. We will be working with North Shore Health Network to ensure that any of their increased costs related to cleaning or personal protective equipment, or if there are specific things that they would like us to upgrade with the vehicle as far as providing more safety for the driver and the passengers. So we'll be working with them to spend those funds. The municipality itself has $289,200 in safe restart funding for municipal operating pressures. It's important to note with this funding that this is not we need to determine what's eligible and ineligible. We get to determine how we allocate this funding. The ministry is not going to say yay or nay, and they're not going to claw back any of this money if we don't spend it all in 2020. If we do not need all of this money to meet our 2020 operating budget, we are expected to put it into reserve and use that in 2021. So we will be.
So would you have started, Sue, putting together a list or of what we are going to spend this on?
I have started to look at some projections for where I think we're going to be at the end of 2020. Very, very, very preliminary numbers. I don't know that we will need to access any of it for 2020, maybe some in the water and wastewater, and we'll have a better idea of that once I know what the third quarter billings are.
Thank you.
But like I mentioned before, management and staff have done a really great job at not spending money they don't actually need to spend in order to deal with reduced revenues. So, and then another little bit of good news we just found out recently is the museum is receiving $20,280 from the Department of Canadian Heritage, specifically to offset Timber Village Museum operating pressures. So they won't likely need to access any of our $289,000. They have their own funding. So that's where we are for 2020, roughly. And like I said, there'll be a fuller report to the next council meeting. So what are our budget pressures for 2021? So the March 2020 economic and fiscal update, the province announced that they were postponing the assessment update for 2021. So our 2021 assessment is going to be based on the same valuation dates as 2020. Although MPAC was to continue to update assessment rolls for new construction, so there might be some growth there. This is not necessarily a bad thing for the town of Blind River. You'll have seen this chart a number of times before, and I've highlighted here what happened the last time we had an assessment, a reassessment. the first year, 2017, we actually saw a decrease of $8.1 million to our assessment base. 2017 also saw a 2.78% tax rate increase, but this resulted in an actual decrease to the total municipal levy of $2,000. So even with a 2.78% tax rate increase in 2017, there was 0% increase in spending. So that being said, we're anticipating something similar when we do get to the reassessment. We don't know yet exactly when that's going to be. At this point, I'm anticipating it'll be 2022, but we don't know yet. 2022 is also an election year, so there's going to be pressure, I know, to keep rates low.
Yep.
We do have a tax stabilization reserve, currently sitting at $250,000. My recommendation is going to be that we look at a dedicated contribution to that tax stabilization reserve in 2021 to help offset a decrease in the assessment when we get into that first year of the next reassessment cycle.
Question, Sue?
Yep.
Yeah, you wrote it down here nicely as 2021 assessment will be based on the same valuation date as 2020. The email or whatnot I received from MPAC, that basically equates to what they were telling me in the email of, they were saying a 0% increase, which means 0% increase means exactly what you just said here, right?
No, what MPAC was referring to there is they are not increasing the municipal levy that they are charging to the municipality for their services.
It will stay at 0%?
So we pay MPAC, I think it's about $72,000 in 2020 for their services to provide that assessment information to us. That levy is not increasing.
Okay.
Two separate things. They provide us with our total assessment. They provide us with all the assessment information and they charge us for it. So it's that charge that they're not increasing for 2021.
Thank you for that explanation. Thanks.
Another pressure that we are facing is interest rates. As I'm sure everybody who has money anywhere knows, the interest rates fell dramatically during 2020. The municipality does have limited investment options. These are regulated by the government, provincial government, through the Municipal Act and the associated regulations, and also by the town's investment policy. We have been trying to maximize interest rates as best we can while maintaining as much flexibility as we can. And that means leaving most of our funds in our high interest savings account through LAS. The current expectation is that rates will remain low in 2021. For the town of Blind River, this is not as huge a thing as it will be for some of the bigger municipalities. We don't have a huge amount of cash invested or just sitting around not doing anything. So it's not as big an impact as it will be for some other municipalities, but it is certainly something that we need to take into consideration.
So low doesn't mean negative, right? Like we're losing money?
We are not in a negative situation, no. Another pressure over the entire organization is salaries and wages. We are entering year 3 of the CUPE agreement. That does contain a 1.65% increase to wages and the associated impact to benefits. Our OMERS is indicating that we should budget the same contribution rate as 2020, but the overall dollars are going to increase because of the increase to the wages. Initial estimated impact of the wage increase only is about $64,500. So similar to last year, 1% tax rate increase is around $55,000. So we're looking at 1% just to cover salaries and wages.
Is that a good thing? Are you okay with that?
It's a pressure that we need to deal with in the 2021 budget.
Okay.
Insurance, 2020 saw an increase of 12.4% to our insurance rates over 2019. Assuming a similar impact or a similar increase in 2021, we'd be looking at a possible $28,000 impact. Just a note that per the agreement with the golf course, the town also pays the golf course insurance. That's not something that we bill out to the golf course. We do have still a balance in our insurance reserve that we could look at to help offset an increase in 2021. We will know better once we know what our new rates are going to be.
Sue, do you remember last year around this time? Did we not, with the insurance, I thought for some reason, I remember that we had a decrease in our insurance.
We did in the first year after we went to RFP, but then it increased last year.
And this is with the same company and it jumped 12.4% this year, right?
It did jump 12.4% in 2020, yes. And if council so directs, we could potentially look to go to RFP for 2022. I believe it was a 3-year term.
Okay.
And as far as the golf course insurance, is this the first time we pay for it, or have we paid it before?
This year is the first year. I believe it has always been in the agreement, but nobody realized it until this year. So 2020 is the first year that the town is seeing the impact of that. It's not huge. I think it was about $7,800 for 2020. But it is additional money that we weren't anticipating having to pay. Another pressure that is going to continue to be an issue for us as we continue to move to more online IT platforms, as per our service delivery review, is IT services. We do currently use an outside contractor. They are not on site. Admin staff have taken on additional IT duties over and above their normal day-to-day jobs, but there is limited capacity there. And as, like I said, as we continue to move to more online and IT intensive processes and platforms, I expect we will need additional IT services, whether that means paying our contractor more, looking to see if we can get them on site 1 or 2 days a week. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but those are options that we need to consider, and something that is definitely going to be a pressure on our 2021 and future budgets.
Yeah, because I thought initially we had talked about this before, and we were looking to maybe try to get shared services. That I guess we didn't get anywhere with that, I guess.
We have not been able to make any progress with that. It's still out there on the table as something that we are considering, but until we can find someone who has someone that they can share with us, it's just not possible.
Well, Elliott Lake was brought up at one time, Sue. So that has failed?
My understanding that their current complement of IT staff does not have the capacity to assist us at this time.
Okay.
Some of the grants that we're not sure what are going to be happening with in 2021, we don't know what our provincial gas tax allocation is going to be. And it's been announced that the OCIF formula-based funding is currently under review. They're updating and refocusing that program. They're hoping to target where it is most needed. So we do not at this point know what, if any, funding we will be getting from the OCIF for 2021. Hopefully we'll know soon, but we do have money in reserve for both of these grants. We have some provincial gas tax reserve money, and we do have some OCIF formula money from 2020 that we did not budget to spend, so that is sitting in a reserve, so could be accessed for 2021 projects.
What was last year's provincial gas tax? You recall, or you have that number?
Usually runs in the neighborhood between $8,000 and $12,000.
Okay.
But again, we're only allowed to take into revenue based on what our expenses are. The rest of it is what has built up this reserve. So those were kind of general overarching pressures that are going to be faced across the municipality. More specifically, this next section is going to deal with specific department pressures. Economic development, obviously we would like to continue or expand the CIP. And during the 2020 budget deliberations, the BRNE project was deferred. Maybe something that the committee or council wish to see brought back into 2021. If so, that's going to bring significant pressure because there's going to be staffing requirements that go along with that project. You'll have seen this slide. I pulled a number of slides out of Katie's presentation at the Special Council Vision Board meeting. This was one of them, just to remind you of what has been happening with the CIP. I'm not sure of many more than 11 applications since the time this was put together, but it is still active. People are still interested, and we continue to receive queries from the various businesses. So we would definitely like to continue it and hopefully expand it next year. Winter control, climate change equals more extreme weather conditions. We're seeing that every year. We do not have, although we did create a winter control reserve a couple of years ago, we have drawn money out of that and have not yet been able to put money back in 2019. Even though we transferred $25,000 out of the winter control reserve, we still ended up about $30,000 over budget in our winter control in 2019. So we need to be aware that we do not have the reserves to deal with significant over budgets in winter control. We need to budget for increased expenses.
Was the opportunity of not plowing the boom camp and the cemetery, those numbers were all taken into consideration? I believe Mr. Bender said we could save $17,000 on this.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that plays out within the 2020 budget.
All right.
Water and wastewater, we are going to tender for the water and wastewater plant operations. So depending what those tenders come back at, there may be a significant impact to the water and wastewater budgets. We've talked about this before, that the water and wastewater rates should not just cover operating costs, but they need to be enough to start putting money into reserve for future capital projects. The asset management plan, if you will remember, recommended annual rate increases of 5.4% for water and 8.5% for wastewater. Those increases were not approved for 2020. We went with much lower rates. We do not have any reserves for water and wastewater.
You have a question, Sue, for you there on, well, sorry, on that one. The rates cover not only operating costs, but need to be, I'm hoping that there may be some numbers you're talking about, because when I read that, I mean, what the question that comes into my head is, okay, so the operating costs, I'm just using this as an example. The operating cost is $1 million. You know, what are we bringing in, you know, from the rates? And if it isn't, if it's $1 million that it costs us, our rates are bringing in what, 800,000? You know, something to compare it to, like, because I mean, I really need to have those numbers, like.
Yeah, so the rates are designed to cover the operating costs, but they're not enough to be putting any money aside for continued maintenance and upgrades to the plants and the infrastructure that go along with providing those services. And they really should. You should have had reserves in place already for these, so that we wouldn't be having to tap into grants and OCIF funding and tax levy money to do upgrades to the sewage treatment plant or the water treatment plant.
Would that roof been one of those?
That roof should have been something that was covered by a water reserve fund, but the town of Blind River does not have one. They have never had rates high enough to allow them to put money into reserve to plan for the future.
Thank you.
Another potential pressure was with the handy transit vehicle. We've been talking for a number of years about increase to the contract fees with North Shore Health Network. 2021 may be the year that happens. Obviously, they have additional costs that they've had to deal with and will continue to deal with as far as PPE and cleaning and those sorts of things. So
So can you just explain how the handy transit works? Because I'm not quite,
Mhm.
it's kind of, it's not as clear to me as it was before, as far as like we purchased the bus, right? And they,
we own the bus, the town owns the bus, and the North Shore Health Network actually runs the program. So they provide the driver, they do all the scheduling, they collect all the fares. All we do is provide them with the vehicle, and they charge us for their operating costs on a monthly basis.
Well, did they not come to us last year asking for a decrease and council okayed that?
Through you, Madam Chair, the answer to Mr. Dunbar's question is that was with regard to a rate that they were charging, but they're looking for an increase to their service, to the overall service. So they're contracted out from the municipality to deliver that service on behalf of the municipality.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
These next slides you will have seen before. These are directly from the CEO's presentation a couple of weeks ago. Our facilities, we know that we need to spend some money on our facilities. We've been saying it for a long time. The Tulloch Review has identified a number of them. Initially, we're still waiting for the final report, obviously, but the initial numbers are staggering, to be honest. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on our facilities. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. Katie went through these with you in detail at the visioning meeting, but just to remind you where we need to initially probably spend money immediately on the arena, the fire hall, the tourist information center, down at the marina, the public works building, the courthouse, and the senior center. If we're going to keep these buildings open and allow people to be in them, we need to start spending some money on them, and that's going to be a huge impact on our 2021 budget. They did make some recommendations on where to start and potential funding sources, so we will definitely take those into consideration in preparing the 2021 budget.
Are you going to utilize these numbers, Sue, when you bring these down at us? Or is it the next meeting where council will have our say? Just as an example, you have arena $400,000, you know, fire hall $100,000, and if it becomes council's wish, that $400,000 now drops to 350 or 75 on the fire hall. Is this when we're going to have our opportunity to?
Not today. Not
No.
today. This is just
Thank
me
you.
presenting you with information.
It's the preliminary. I get it.
This is me providing what I think our budget pressures are. The next meeting is where you get to provide us with some direction of where you want us to go based on all of this information that I'm giving you today and
Right.
the information that Katie gave you at the visioning meeting.
Yeah.
I'm just reiterating here to make sure that we don't forget about the money that we need. And this is immediate to 5 years. This is not saying we have to do everything next year, but these are going to be things that we're going to build into our 5-year capital forecast. So these are the numbers we will be working with within that 5-year capital forecast. And if the committee decides we want to do something else first, then we can move things around within the 5-year capital. But these are the numbers we're starting with.
Okay, thank you.
We do have some reserves. There's one additional reserve that I've added here from Katie's original list. We do still have $36,575.29 specifically for the Tourist Information Center that is carried over from 2018. So I've added that in, and I have updated the NWO Community Wellbeing Reserve total for that GIC came due just at the end of September. So that is the more accurate total that is sitting in that reserve currently. And just a reminder, this is Katie's slide as well, but all facilities are not on this list. You'll notice the town hall was conspicuous by its absence from that list. We know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here to bring this building up to where it really should be as well. And again, it will be up to the committee and council to provide direction to us at the next meeting of where your priorities are.
We'll find you the money, Sue.
Thanks, Jim. Infrastructure, again, these slides are, again, you'll have seen these ones before. I'm going to show them to you again because you need to see these numbers. So our 5-year road plan, these were numbers that Mark presented at the last meeting. Our surface treatment plan, this is one where we're actually in pretty good shape. We have been putting money every year. We've been doing our surface treatment plan every year. And we've been putting pretty much these numbers as the dollars that we've been spending on our surface treatment plan.
Right.
So we're doing okay there, but where the numbers get quite scary is when we go to our paved roads. And you can see the average over the next 5 years is $1.1 million that we need to be putting into our paved roads to bring that, to keep them where at our current PCI rating. $1.4 million, I think, equates to somewhere around a 27 or 28% tax rate increase. We don't want to go there, but that's the reality of what we should be doing if we want to maintain our roads, and it only gets worse if we want to improve our roads. We have in the past received some grant funding, but that's not something that we should be relying on or counting on because it's not necessarily going to be available. We need to get a plan in place where we can address this on our own. So food for thought. Our sidewalk plan, again, we have been putting money aside for sidewalks. Over the next our 5-year capital forecast allocates about $50,000 a year for capital sidewalk work, which should take care of this number over the next 5 years. So we are in pretty good shape with the sidewalks. Knock on wood. Fleet, so fire department is in a position where they need to replace some of their vehicles. They are looking to replace 2 vehicles with 1. We do have $220,000 in the fire truck reserve that would be used to offset the cost of this, as well as any revenues that we might realize on the disposition of the 2 old vehicles. We should be able to get something for them so that those revenues too would go to offset the cost of the new vehicle. And Fleet is looking to replace their sweeper. This is the one that they have right now. It is old, it is tired. We did have originally in the 5-year forecast to replace it with a used vehicle. Further reflection though says that it would be wiser to buy something new. Anything we buy used is going to require significant maintenance to bring it up to standard where we can actually use it. And a new vehicle would last us, I think Mark said somewhere around 30 years. So it would definitely be a good investment.
Do you have a ballpark figure on what one of those might be worth?
I do not. Mark, do you have a number?
Well, top level is probably close to 300,000, in the 280 range. We had an opportunity presented to us that I'm still trying to negotiate. That's closer down to the $220,000 mark, but we're still working on some deals there. But it's definitely a 300 range, I guess, would be the safest.
That's what I'm writing down.
And all those numbers will be in front of you when we actually present the draft budget to you. So, the cemetery. I don't know if anybody's been out to the cemetery, but we're having issues with the trees out at the cemetery. They're big, they're old, and the branches are starting to fall down. And not only has the public raised concerns about this, but so are our staff who are working out at the facility, especially when it's windy. They're afraid that branches are going to come down and injure them or their equipment or the headstones. So we're looking at a plan to deal with some of the tree issues out there. That's going to be expensive. Equipment, we mostly use public works equipment out at the cemetery, but a lot of times it's too big to get into the areas that they need to get into. So we're looking at some equipment that's a bit smaller that could be used at the cemetery, but could also be used in other places. So it could be used for parks, it could be used for trails, it could be used for any number of other places, not strictly for the cemetery, but we need some equipment at the cemetery.
Sue,
Right size. Sorry,
with
Jennifer.
the $50,000 quote that we got for removing some of those trees, did we kind of get a few quotes from local vendors, or was it just one company?
I'm not sure. Mark, can you answer that question?
Yeah, so that was just an initial assessment with one individual, but yeah, we would definitely be getting more than one price. But the individual that we used has been he's always been our lowest bidder.
Thank you.
Question, Mark. Could we not utilize our own, our town-owned company of North Shore Power Group with their 50-foot boom hander and have them tackle some of those trees, maybe taking down some branches or topping, or, you know, slowly topping the individual trees? Can we, and have we thought of that?
Haven't really thought of it, to be honest, Jim, because it's not our area of expertise, although we have done some tree removal, but those ones definitely are going to be a challenge, but something we can consider.
Just, yeah, keep it in the back of your mind to utilize. I mean, if I had my bucket truck, I'd go up there and do it for nothing for you.
There's also going to probably be some maintenance required on the storage building that's at that facility and the fencing at that facility as well. And this, again, will all come forward as part of the 5-year capital plan when we present the draft budget.
I have a comment from a few people thanking the cemetery board. I guess they thought it was a board, for keeping the water in the tanks in the 45-gallon barrels. They were quite happy with that. Just so you know, Katie, I had a lot of good comments on that. And Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Dunbar, but that was actually Karen's crew, the Parks and Rec staff handling that. They did a great job with that.
Yeah. Okay then. Thank you.
The next set of slides are again directly out of the visioning presentation that our CAO did with you a few weeks ago. Just a reminder of some of the things that were on council's vision lists and what direction staff are looking for with respect to those, and the considerations that need to be taken into account. I'm not going to go through these again in any detail. This was reviewed during that meeting. But it's here as a reminder that these are the things that, some of the things that we will be looking for specifically direction from the committee at the next council meeting, or at the next committee meeting.
And any that we bring forward to you too, right?
Anything else that you bring forward to us, yes. So not all doom and gloom, just want to end on a bit of a positive note here. As we already mentioned, Jim brought up, MPAC has announced a 0% increase to the total municipal levy for 2021. That is the fee that they charge us to provide their services. We did recently see a decrease in health and dental benefits. Our federal gas tax should be going up by 4.5% to $220,230 in 2021. OMPF has announced that they are maintaining the current level of funding, so we will not see a decrease in our OMPF funding for 2021. We just received word that our OPP contract is going to be decreasing by 3.3% or $32,157 in 2021. And preliminary, and I've underlined this and I should highlight it and put it in capital letters and all the rest, but preliminary discussions indicate that we should not be seeing any increases for physician recruitment, Algoma Public Health, or ADSAB. But these are preliminary discussions and things can change in a heartbeat, as you know. So, again, this is the final consideration slide from the visioning presentation. We do not have the tax base to support all of these initiatives, not all at the same time. We need as I mentioned before, we need a clear understanding that if water and wastewater are a priority, then these funds need to be coming from the users of the water and wastewater services and not the entire tax base.
Can you elaborate just a little bit on that, not the entire tax base? Because, I mean, no, you know what? I'm going to leave that. We'll talk about that at the next meeting.
It's the same thing as I was mentioning before, Jim. The water and wastewater rates should have been setting aside enough money to put into reserves to deal with future maintenance and upgrades of the system. And that has not happened. That is referring to.
Yeah, I follow that. I understand that.
Yeah, Katie went through this slide with you. We don't need to spend a lot of more time on it. Things for you to consider. So where we go from here, we are continuing to meet with the management team to put together our 2021 budget proposals and our proposed user fees for 2021. The next meeting is Tuesday, October 27th. That is where we will be looking to you to provide us with direction on where you want us to go with the 2021 budget. Tax rate increase, service decrease, which facilities you want us to focus on. Those are the things that we will be looking for direction at the next meeting. And that is all I had.
I had just asked when we were at the other meeting too, that if possible, if we could get some of the stats, like from the timbers in the marina, that sort of thing, if it was collected this summer, it would be nice to see what kind of numbers that we had compared to last year, because I believe we did have some ways to see where we sat. I mean, I know it was a rough year, but where we're at, the revenues that we see there as well.
Yeah, that would be nice.
For museum portion of that operation was similar to the library.
You might need to elaborate on that. And your speaker went, Katie.
You say it again, I lost it. I don't know my.
We seem to have a really bad
Gone
connection.
and now
Can you
I'm
hear
back.
me now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so what I was saying was, just for council's refresher, the museum did not open this summer, similar to the library. It was not open. The Timber Village, the gallery was open and the Wave Cafe was open, but the museum portion was not open. So there is no stats for that facility.
Right.
Similar to the library.
Okay. I think when I said Timber Village Museum, I'm thinking of it as a whole. So whatever.
And we do know that the gallery did see better sales this year than they've ever seen. So we know right there that the stats should be very good for that facility this year.
You're muted.
There you go. Somebody's frozen or something.
No, you're muted, Sally.
There you go. Okay. Are there any other questions for our treasurer?
Good job, Sue, as usual, and congratulations on your award.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
There it is up on the shelf.
Also, thanks to council for your questions. Jim, you're always right on the button asking questions on behalf of council. This is a good overview and certainly something for us to think of. I would suggest that you go through last year's budget, if you still have your spreadsheets, because it gives us a pretty good idea. I found going through my spreadsheets from last year gave us a good idea of where we were. So we don't have any correspondence. We can certainly tell through the issues that we had through this meeting with the internet that, Jim, we know you're right on the broadband initiative. So all the more reason for that. And we don't know what our costs are going to be going forward on that. We have no addendums. So I'm asking,
Sally, just one thing there. You
Yep.
were talking about our spreadsheets that we all had for last year's budget and you'd like to look at. I'm hoping to have the same one printed up. I'd pick it up in my pigeonhole for this year's too, if that's possible.
yeah, I would defer.
I don't like doing it all from this here eScribe.
Gotcha. Okay.
We can certainly make paper copies of it available if that's what's requested.
Yeah, that is requested from me, Sue. Thank you.
Yeah, actually for me too, please.
I would love one too.
Sounds like it's unanimous. All right, I will
we can-
ask Councillor Postuero, do you have a motion to adjourn?
I sure can.
And seconded by Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Absolutely.
You can tell Councillor Roy that you took his role.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I'm going to text him right now.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
You
Bye,
too.
guys.
You too.